What's up, my real estate clients? It's Rex, and today I'm going to talk to you about our 14 steps that we do before we ever put a house on the market. If you're interested in finding out what you need to do before the sign goes up, stick around. So before we put a house on the market, typically we want to make sure that we've identified all the hidden costs of sale and surprises that could come up as much as possible. We want to go through the property with you and make sure it's all ready to go. We want to have all the marketing materials ready and all that kind of stuff. So I have 14 steps that we take every single time we are ready to sell a house, before we ever put the sign on the property, before the buyers ever show up, before any marketing materials ever go out anywhere. We want to make sure all these items are handled. Now, most realtors will probably meet with you and give you a list of items that you should do in order to prepare the home for sale, I hope. Most of them will, well, they'll all do photography, but a lot of them will do it on their cell phone. They'll just come over and snap a bunch of pictures. And then that's probably about the extent of a lot of them. Not all of them, but I mean, a lot of them, they just take pictures on the cell phone and put the sign up and hope for the best. People start showing up, and then they get an offer, and then they accept an offer with you, and then they start renegotiating that whole thing all the way through the transaction until it falls out. I'm being a little hard on them, but you know, whatever. So the 14 steps that we take before we ever put a sign on the property are, and I'm going to do this kind of fast, as I do sometimes do these quickly. Number one, meet with your realtor and go through the house and have them tell you what they recommend that you should do or not do to prepare the home for sale. Get their list of items, and then you decide what you want to do with it. I'm not going to go into that list. That's a whole nother video. Number two, professionally stage your house if it makes sense. Not every house makes sense to stage it. It's kind of expensive, right? So we don't want to stage every single home if it doesn't make sense, but anytime it does make sense, well, you know, have their home stagers come in and take a look at the place and give you an estimate, and we don't always stage them. But that'd be number two, if it makes sense. Number three is have the professional photography done. Now, when you do professional photography, the house has to be looking good. So typically you want to fix up the house and all that kind of stuff first before you actually do the photography. You want to have your cars out of the driveway and away from the house so they can get a nice shot of the whole front of the house without having to worry about that. You want to have the pets away for that time when they're doing the photography and the videography. That all needs to be done at exactly the same time, right? You don't do two separate photo shoots typically. Now, not every room is maybe suitable for photography, so your realtor will tell you, it should be us, but if it's not us, hopefully they'll tell you which rooms they're going to be shooting and which ones are not going to be part of the marketing program and the photography. Step number four, if you're also buying a house, while you're selling your house, you want to make sure you're taken care of on the buying end so you don't have any problems there. So we want to run the credit report at the very least, yours, to make sure there's no mistake or something else on there that's going to mess up your purchase on the other end. We also want to know, sit down and figure out if we're going to be doing a contingent and concurrent close and these kind of things. So we'll just identify what the best way is for you to make that smooth move from one house to the next. Step number five is to have the termite report done. So, termite report in California, we have, termites and wood damage and wet rot and dry rot and all kinds of stuff. And all that stuff usually needs to be corrected before the seller can transfer the home to the buyer, because the bank wants to make sure the property is free of termites and wood damage and all this kind of stuff. So we have a termite company come out, and they'll usually give us a free report to make sure that we know exactly what the cost of the termite repair is going to be. Because if there's a $5,000 termite repair, I mean, that might change everything about the reason for your sell. So we want to make sure that doesn't become a hidden surprise or a cost of sale that we weren't expecting halfway through the transaction when we're already in escrow. Right? So we want to do that up front. Number six is the preliminary title report. So when you sell a house, you got to have the title report run to show that you have clear title for the house, that you can sell it. And then we provide that to the buyer and they look at it and they approve it. But sometimes on that title report, there can be all kinds of stuff, right? People love to attach stuff to real estate, like mechanics liens, or if you ever owed anybody something, or someone did work on your house, or maybe there's a mistake on there, or who knows, there can be all kinds of stuff. So we want to make sure we run that first before we get into escrow with somebody, and then take care of any problems that are there before we ever put the sign up. Step number 7 is the natural hazard disclosure. This is just another disclosure that has to be done during the process, and most realtors will order it after you're in escrow, and then it becomes a big problem. We order it before you go into escrow, so we know if there's some sort of like a munition storage facility or a missile silo or a an old gas station or something buried under a lot next door to you or something like that nobody knew about. And so that way we can use that information and negotiate all those items on the natural hazard disclosure during that moment of highest negotiating position when the buyers are going to be okay with it and probably sign off on it, versus after that when there's going to be a big issue and they're going to ask for money back and want a lower price or something like that. So let's take care of that first. Step number 8 that we do is seller disclosures. As a home seller, you have to disclose anything you know about the property. Anything you would want to know if you were buying that property, you need to disclose to your buyer, right? So normally, well, I shouldn't say normal. I think a lot of people do this one up front because it's just part of the natural paperwork that we do as realtors. We get the seller disclosures up front, but most people don't have that as part of their counteroffer, so it's negotiated in during that moment of highest negotiating position. Normally your buyer comes in, makes an offer, you accept it, and then they get the seller disclosures like a couple days later, and then they don't like it, and then they back out of escrow or they ask you for money or something. So we just take care of that up front and then make it part of our package when we're counteroffering, if it makes sense. All market dependent, all house dependent, all seller dependent. So typically we'll do that. Number 9 is the HOA docs. HOA is Homeowners Association. Your homeowners association, if you have one, will have documentation and policies and procedures and this kind of stuff. So we want to make sure we get that package of documentation, if we're able to, up front before the sign goes up, before the buyer shows up. So if there's something weird in there, I don't know, like pool restrictions or something like that, or I don't know, it could be anything. Easements and this kind of thing. So we just want to, in the way that people are allowed to paint their houses and stuff, we want to make sure that we just provide that to the buyer if we're able to up front. So we try and order it before the sign goes up. Number 10, in association with HOA documentation, we want to make sure that homeowners association does or does not have litigation against it. Because if there's litigation on the homeowners association, that could be a problem. So we want to make sure that it could limit what kind of buyers you can accept when you're selling your house. So we want to see if your homeowners association has litigation. We need to talk to them and figure out what kind of litigation it is and what does it mean, and be able to convey that information to the buyer and let them know what it is, and we'll know what it is so we can make sure we're choosing the right kind of buyer for your property if there is litigation in the homeowners association. If there's litigation against your property, well, we need to look at that too. So anywhere there's litigation, we need to know about it. We need to look into it and see what it is and be able to tell the buyer what's going on and hopefully negotiate anything in during that moment of highest negotiating position and avoid hidden surprises and costs of sale that might come up later. Number 11 is the pre-sale home inspection. When your buyer shows up and they make an offer and you accept it, they're going to have their own home inspector show up and come into the house, look through every nook and cranny, and give you a giant list of deficiencies in the property. And then they're going to ask you to correct them or to give them credits and this kind of stuff, typically. So what we're going to recommend, probably, I got to look at your house just to make sure, but not all of them make sense for this, but if it does, we're going to have a pre-sale home inspection, which means we're going to have our home inspector come out, take a look at the property, go through every nook and cranny of that house or estate or whatever you've got, and then we're going to have them provide us a list of deficiencies along with photographs of every little thing they can possibly find, down to the least loose nail, every loose board, any light bulb that's out. I mean, everything that they could possibly find, we want them to find it. Provide us with a photograph of it, and then we're going to ask them, what does each of these items mean? What is it going to cost to correct? What would happen if you don't correct it? What does that mean? And then we're going to have our own pre-sale home inspection before the buyer ever shows up, before the sign goes up, before the marketing starts, so we know what's going on. That way, during that moment of highest negotiating position, hopefully we'll be able to utilize this information to sell your home in as-is condition and avoid all the renegotiation that happens almost all the time in almost every real estate transaction, leading to costs that you didn't expect and hassle and everyone screaming at each other and escrows falling out and all kinds of naughty stuff that we don't want to have any aspect of anything to do with. That was pretty weird. Anyhow, so pre-sale home inspection, super important if it makes sense, and we're going to have that done and then utilize that to stop any renegotiation. Number 12 is just basically complete everything before the sign goes up. So any more paperwork needs to be done, the flyers that need to be done, everything should be scheduled for the marketing start date. Number 13 is schedule the marketing start date. So normally, most real estate companies will put your house on the market, and then people will show up over the next couple of months and look through your house whenever they want, and I don't know, make offers if they want to, and then that's just normal, right? So you'll have to deal with people coming over all the time. If you're using our 1, 2, 3 sold method or our sold in 3-day method, then we're going to be scheduling those open houses and all the buyers are going to show up. We're going to compress the entire home buying market and compress the entire home selling experience into just 3 days. I mean, the part where you're actually open for people to come in and take a look at the property. All the buyers show up at that same time because our massive marketing efforts go everywhere. Any buyers looking for a house like yours, they're going to see it. All the buyers are going to show up. All the real buyers are going to show up. Everybody will see that property and make their offers on it, and then we're going to have them compete against each other to raise the price up as much as we possibly can to maximum market value. And then you're done in terms of people coming over and bothering you and poking through your house and interrupting your life. So that's why we schedule the marketing start date, and we know exactly when the marketing is going to happen. Number 14 is don't tell anyone you're selling your house until the marketing start date, because the minute you start telling everyone you want to sell your house, they all know somebody who has an interest in like saving you money and getting you a good deal on your house and this kind of stuff. And then you have all these people that come over that they're not really buyers. They're just sort of time wasters that show up, and I've seen it over and over and over. And then it just kind of distracts us all from what we're supposed to be doing, which is preparing the house for sale. You need a full marketing plan going out, and you need the whole thing, all the flyers in the box, the sign on the property, all the marketing, pushing out to all the consumer-based websites and anywhere online that some buyers looking. They all need to show up and have, that experience of the house with all the other buyers in there and the house looking at its best. So don't tell anybody you're going to be selling your house until it's just about ready to be on the market and the marketing is about ready to start, so they can all show up at the same time and have that same opportunity to feel the pressure of the other buyers that are going to be competing against them. That's how you get maximum market value for your house. Well, that's it for the 14 steps we take before we put the sign on the property, before the buyers show up, just to make sure that you're all set and ready to go. The house is prepared, the marketing's prepared, and you're prepared, mentally and emotionally, for this quick home selling experience, to make sure that everything goes well and all the buyers show up and it turns out to be a great experience for you, and you get maximum market value and a great home selling experience and a great buyer, and then you have all the time and terms you need as well. So that's it for this episode of me talking to you, and we'll see you at your house.